community, so give us a post in the chat and let us know who you're cheering on tonight and who you think is going to be victorious here around Road Atlanta. The twisty S's that we've seen probably in many a Twitch clip of absolute chaos as some of these cars try to navigate their way down the hill to the safety of the later phases of this circuit. Now, so in terms of where you can get involved with some of this action, you can find us over at www.facebook.com/iRacing UK. Send us a message over there if you're interested in joining the community and getting involved in one of these fantastic leagues. If you're watching us on the Twitch channel and you didn't know that we had YouTube, well, we've got you covered. That's www.youtube.com/c/iRacing UK community. You can find us over there. And then on Twitter and Instagram, you can keep up to date with all the news and what's coming up on the leagues. We are IR_UK_team platforms. So, Chris, we're currently... The scenic view there of Adam Holloway going for his outlap, and we'll be seeing plenty of the other cars around this circuit very shortly. So they've got a couple of laps, as Chris said, for qualifying. That'll set the pace, the order for the sprint race, and then following on from the sprint race, the result of that will set the feature race order. So, Chris, the one thing I've noticed, obviously on this, and I did mention a little bit earlier, is the S's. It's a fairly lethal bit of the track if you get it wrong, with grass on either side. And do you think this is going to be one of the spots that we see the most trouble this evening?
For sure, I think there'll probably be some stress later around the circuit coming out of turn 7, which is that sharp right-hander, and then all the way down the straight as well, because that's going to be the best overtaking opportunity. But the turn sort of 2, 3, 4 complex, as we're just seeing here, we've got our car going through there now. It's hard enough to go through there quickly on your own. There's going to be another 25 odd cars around you at the start of these races. There's a reason why I'm in the commentary booth and not driving. I seem to avoid this track whenever I can. It's just not a section I've ever been able to nail. So it's going to reflect very well on the drivers today if they can all keep it clean through there. But at least unlike last week and next race, they're going to have some runoff zones. So your race isn't over if you lose it into the S's. So that's good, I would say.
Brilliant stuff. Well, okay, so obviously we are on a slightly different format this evening. I believe we had a couple of sound issues at the start. So for those of you that didn't hear the race format this evening, we've got 29 drivers confirmed for our race this evening. We've already had an open practice for 15 minutes, which was what we opened with earlier this evening. And now they are in a lone qualification starting from 8:15. So that's 8 minutes of lap time, 2 hot laps to get it done and set themselves up for the order of the sprint race, which will be starting at 8:25, just before 1/2 past the hour. Following on from that, that's going to be also, I should just tell you how many laps are in that sprint race. That's a 10-lap sprint race. It should be completed in about 18 minutes. And then following on from that, we'll have the feature race, the order of which has been set then by the result of the sprint race. 30 minutes round Road Atlanta, and these cars will be expected to complete around 25 laps during that time. So stay with us for a whole evening of action. These cars have been fantastic to watch over the last few rounds where we've been at various races. So looking forward to everything on offer tonight. Now, I believe at the moment, let's have a look at the timings. We've got a few drivers that have been out and set hot laps now. 1:20 from Chris Wally at the moment. He's set the fastest pace for the evening. Not far behind him, though, we've got equal times for Mark Baxter-Jones and Stuart Brown with 0.84 each on a hot lap. That is incredible to have those two essentially tying for second place there at the moment. So I presume that the place goes to whoever set that lap time first based on the rules of the game. Following them, we've got Matt Carts with a 1:20.99, so just managing to slip into the 1:20s and stay with the front three. And then we slip into the 1:21s after that with the likes of Rocket, Exelbeat, Mark Johnson, Stephen Kershaw and Vance Briggs there with the 1:22. So lots of people out on track who have been setting some quick times. Looks like Chris Wally now been dethroned by Baxter Jones, who's put in a 1:20.32. Chris, do you think we're going to see anybody slip into the 1:19s, or is that a bit outlandish really to expect that kind of time from these guys?
Do suck up to Baxter Jones too much, but if he's only doing 20.3s, it would be an absolutely heroic lap from someone to go quicker than that. And we were saying earlier about Gavin Halls not making it. It looks like he's connected at the very last possible moment, and he's actually got his first qualifying lap in. He's gone straight in with a 20.4, so depending on how quickly he's got his tyres up to temperature, half a second is a big ask, but he could get into those 1:19s, and that's going to do his championship hopes a lot of good, I would say, especially with Elia not here tonight. So that does leave Dan Bathy, who has qualified in 9th currently. That's his closest competition, and he's already ahead of him. So that's very good news if you're Gavin Halls.
Absolutely. So we've got plenty of drivers out on track now that have set times. It looks like we've only got James Armstrong that hasn't put a lap time in so far this evening. So we'll keep an eye on James and see what he's up to. In fact, we're going to be with James, and that looks like a lot of dust and smoke that's been kicked up there. And we'll have to go to a scenic view because it was obviously too horrific to bear witness to in that moment. Now, instead, we'll show you Ken Crawford, who's setting another time now. He's currently got a 1:21.52 under his belt. That's good enough for P11, so not quite in the top 10. He'll be chasing down Mark Johnson, who's just slightly ahead. Oh, there we go, and Kane Crawford puts himself into 9th position, and Tom Slater up to 11th, also pushes Mark Johnson down another place into 12th. So there's all to play for still at the tail end of this qualifying session with, again, most of the drivers, other than James Armstrong, having set that lap now. Here we are now with Rob Armstrong, the other Armstrong, and like father, like son. It's all about the walls for the Armstrongs today. We'll go over to Craig Schill now. So here is Craig Schill, a fantastic livery that we've got running there. It is I guess a tribute to the tragic passing of the Marshal, who tragically lost their life at Brands Hatch as a result of an accident there this weekend. Craig Schill himself a part of the Marshal community, as he there's a bit of a stylish spin there for us on that hot lap. And car number 82, we're looking forward to seeing Craig throughout the race. Now, it looks like still just James we're waiting for. Mark Baxter-Jones still sitting pretty at the top of the table with 1:20.32, but Gavin Halls just edging ever so much closer to Baxter-Jones' time with a 1:20.35, so only 0.03 of a second between P1 and P2, which to me, Chris, tells me that there's going to be one hell of a fight on our hands here at the start of this race.
Yes, for sure, and I think it's going to be crucial that start you get, because if you can get that edge into turn 1, especially on lap 1 of the sprint race, knowing that your grid position for the feature race is determined by where you finish in the sprint race, you don't want to take massive risks if you're near the top at the start of that race. So it's good. I think the start will be crucial, because if you can hold someone around the first half of the first lap, you are golden if you can keep it on the track for the remaining 10 laps, which is easier said than done in any car around this track, let alone the Porsche, which, as we've said before, you do have to be an absolute god of car control to go quickly and safely in this machine.
Absolutely, and it looks like we're now at time for qualifying. So that's 8 minutes they've had now, and the times are locked in for sprint race number 1. So this is what we're going to be calling Heat 1, I suppose, for the evening before the feature. So this race will set the order for the feature. It's going to be 10 laps. They've got 18 minutes to do it. This should be some incredibly high caliber, kind of high octane action from these guys as we see them vying for position to make sure that they get themselves into that premium point scoring advantage position for the feature race. So we've got Mark Baxter-Jones at the top of the table, followed by Gavin Halls, then Chris Wally, Stuart Brown in 4th, and then Michael Hornby in 5th. Rob Exelby comes up behind them in 6th, with Matt Cox, Denny Wood, Kane Crawford and Dan Bathy making up your top 10. Following on from that, we've got Tom Slater, Mark Johnson, Stephen Kershaw, Vance Briggs, Oliver Carwadine, Adam Holloway, Stephen Masters, Jared Coleman, Anthony Franklin, Steve Hughes, and then Rob Armstrong there in 21st. Just waiting for the drivers to grid up now. We've got plenty of them there, just waiting for Kane Crawford and Dan Bathy, and I believe Craig Schill also. The cars lined up all the way around the corner up the hill here, so a lot of track being used. That they've got a whole corner to navigate if you're starting from the back here, which obviously is going to be blind to you if there's possibly an incident off the start. We're hoping not for any of that kind of action this evening, but hopefully just some side-by-side door-banging action down those S's. We'll get some great racing from these Porsche Cup guys, just as we had before, and we're getting ready for the lights to go out now. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 lights, and we are away in the Porsche Cup race this evening. Off they go. It looks like we've got some great starters in the middle of the pack there. The front two not getting off quite as quickly as some of the guys behind them, but it looks to me like Baxter-Jones has managed to hold that lead there with Gavin Halls behind. Gavin Halls almost under a bit of a challenge there from Chris Wallet, who's just backed off and tucked in behind Gavin Halls. Oh, we've got one spinner there on turn 1, getting sideways as the front of the pack seems to get off okay down the S's. I'm hearing that it's Rob Armstrong that we saw going off there in the background at turn 1. And here we go, Gavin Halls chasing hard down the S's. We've got all these Porsche Cup cars nose to tail staying nice and close together. They haven't managed to pull a gap out at the front of this pack yet, and it looks like we've had a relatively clean start for all of our front runners, but there's a whole 10 laps of action to go here, and let's not forget that they're going to be fighting for position. The only thing these guys are going to be thinking of is, I don't want to wreck my potential in the next race. I want to make it as easy for myself as possible, so no risky manoeuvres. But as we do see a couple of cars having a look around one another there, I think that was Matt Cox having a look around Rob Exelby there, who's following on behind Michael Hornby. So your order at the moment, Chris Wally, Michael Hornby in 4th, Rob Exelby brings up 5th position. It looks like Gavin Halls has managed to get it at the inside there, possibly at Baxter-Jones, and he's got the move done there. The final corner, or the penultimate corner. Here we go back. He's going round the outside there, Chris. That's a bold manoeuvre.
Yeah, I mean, he got a very good run coming out of the last turn. It's such a long straight on the back straight here at Road Atlanta. Nice and cleanly done. You've signalled your intentions early, so you're not going to lose too much time fighting with the other driver. And he's clear, and he's home clear already. They've already bridged a bit of a gap to Chris Wally. He's already a second down on the lead here, and he's got Michael Hornby for company. So it's not like he can concentrate on just keeping up with them. It's not a huge gap, but it might just be enough that those two at the front, Halls and Baxter-Jones, can hope they'll be hoping between them. They can get away and they can just secure that front row slot for the next race.
We know he's incredibly strong out in the Porsche Cup. We've seen him win a number of occasions, and comfortably so in many a case. And it looks to me like he's just starting to pull out that gap to Baxter-Jones a little bit, which is going to take the pressure off of him. As you said, Wally under pressure here from Michael Hornby, who we've seen in a number of the iRacing UK leagues driving incredibly strongly. So great to see him here fighting for one of the podium positions in the sprint race. So this will just set his position for the main feature. And we've also got Matt Cox now just dropping back a little bit from this fight ahead of him, and he's going to have Kane Crawford to battle with by the looks of it at the moment.
Yep, although they're all going inside, they're all going in one at a time into the chicane here. No one's tried to make a move this lap. Someone who has been making moves though is James Armstrong, who's already up to 13, starting at the back of the grid. That's 13 places he's made. He's halfway through his last to first challenge already here. But he'll be hoping he doesn't do a repeat 2 weeks ago where he made all these places up and then binned it repeatedly. He's got a bit more runoff time, runoff zone this time, so hopefully his rear wing's going to survive this time. But he's running very strongly already. Denny Wood is the next guy that he's got to catch here, who's a very quick driver himself, so it's not going to be easy to get past these guys.
Fantastic racing from James so far. Yeah, I think as we just the camera snapped to him a little bit just a moment ago, we caught him making another move into the final chicane. It's a great racing there from James. It's a whole, there's a lot of positions that he managed to make up there. now further up the field. The order hasn't changed very much. James has managed to get himself past Adam Holloway there. No nasty concrete walls to bite you on either side of the track tonight, like Belle Isle, as we said earlier. A bit of a run for these guys to play, so hopefully any incidents will be met with a bit more soft grass rather than hard concrete. Now, James looking at the back of Denny Wood there, really all over the back. He's chewing through pace there. Absolutely taking time out of all of these guys. It'd be a surprise if we don't see him well into the top 10 by the end of his 10 laps. And here he is going for a move now on the outside there. He's going to be able to make it happen. He's got it. He's made himself very clear. Late braking manoeuvre. And he's going to get this speed done, possibly in the same. Oh, a little bit of contact there. But he's got it done. And that was, albeit slightly aggressive, incredibly effective, Chris.
Yeah, I feel bad for Stephen Kershaw, who was the second driver he overtook there, because I expect he wouldn't have been looking at his mirrors to James Armstrong there, because he thought, well, James is 2 cars behind me. So he's taken his normal line into the chicane, realised, and just slightly been tapped off by James. It was assertive, and I would say it's just on the line behind being naughty, but if I was Kershaw, I'd be very upset. If I'm Armstrong, I'm patting myself on the back for an excellent double overtake. Now it's Mark Johnson who will be the next one for him to go for, and that's 15 places he's made, and he's going out well. 3 laps, that is. That's absolutely ridiculous. Cox, it looks like, has gone past Michael Hornby.
Cox past Michael Hornby, which could only be a mistake if it was, though. A little bit wide there. There's going to be a bit of damage possibly to the front of that Porsche car. So that's unfortunate for Hornby, who we praised earlier for his performance in some of our previous leagues. He won't be chasing after Chris Polly much more after that little love tap against the wall. We're back with Stuart Brown now, who I believe may have been a little bit of an incident earlier, but at the moment it looks like he's just holding firm there, trying to have his own little race here with Michael who's ahead of him. I did see Barnes Briggs getting past him earlier as well, so manoeuvring going on in the middle of the pack as we watch these guys going incredibly close together, bumper to bumper into the final sector of this circuit. Oh, on the outside, there's a really good 2-wide bit of chicane here. Oh, and it's almost 3-1 with a bit of bumping and banging going on there. That's car 35 and Michael Rowe managed to get ahead by the looks of it.
Yeah, some excellent driving there.
It's Craig Schill just going off track there, I think, Chris.
I think Craig's had a bit of damage because that's the second time I think he's gone off. He's right at the back. He's in 25th with just the pitted Rob Exelby behind him. I think at this point you just sort of try and get the miles in so you've got practice for that second race, because that's, I suppose, the nice thing for you as a driver here. If you've lost it in this race, all it really means is that you're just starting the back of the next race. You can still make those places up, as James Armstrong showed us this evening already. I mean, we've still got 12 minutes of this race left. Where on earth is James Armstrong going to be on the grid for the feature race the way he's going?
Well, we're here now looking at Mark Johnson, who's the next driver under threat from the wrath of James, who has been using every bit of the track. You see him getting all over the grass and the out a moment ago, and he's got a great run here, but I don't think he's going to be able to do it. Really look there on the inside, he's going to go for it, to be on a late braking manoeuvre, and I think Mark Johnson there is just going to say, yeah, fine, absolutely, James, off you go. I don't want to die today. That's quite enough action. Thank you very much. Off you go. So James Armstrong now going to be, he's made his way into the top 10 as we said we thought he might, and he's going to be chasing after Oliver Carwoodine and Tom Slater next.
Yeah, I don't want to boost his ego too much, but it's very reminiscent of Lewis Hamilton earlier today at Hungary, for those of you who watched that. I won't spoil what the actual result was. It looks like Tom Slater has possibly had an incident. He's going down the order, so that's another driver that James Armstrong has got past, although this time not his fault, as we see. Yeah, that's what happens. Tom Slater there, he's got wide into, I believe that would have been, CSC, so as we were saying earlier, trickiest part of the circuit, and it's really, I think it's the first time we've seen a driver lose it there. I suppose you could call the Michael Hornby going wide earlier. That's part of the essence really. But Hornby's now in 7th. Every close battle so far, as Sean's pointed out to a scenario, has been James so far.
Yeah, and here he is now behind Oliver Carwoodine. He's been chipping through the order like nothing really, hasn't he? Here's Dan Bathy on the back of Matt Cox. He's been chasing him for a little while, and it looks like Matt's going to be having to try and go defensive here, but he's not got the pace. Oh, later on the brakes, he's just managed to squeeze his way back through, defend that, but he's incredibly deep into the exit. That's going to be a pretty slow run out of there, I expect, and maybe Dan Batty now with a bit more speed, he possibly is going to be in line here to make a move on the main straight, or is he not? I don't think, is he? But Kane Crawford behind them is that I can see chasing as well.
Yep, well, that's Kane Crawford, and then that's Michael Hornby behind them, and they're going to be side by side. So that means Dan Bathley is going to have a nice bit of breathing room now, so he can try and close that 2.5-second gap to Matt Cox in fourth. And yeah, there's a bit of space opening up near the front here now. So I think for James, who's just got past Carmody, he's now got 3 seconds up to this pack of 3, so he'll be hoping they slow each other down. But this could be our chance to see what James's overall pace is actually like, because his fastest lap is a 20.6. That's 4 tenths slower than the front 4, so it's not like he's the strongest driver out here, but then he's been, yeah, James has been in traffic the whole time, so we don't know if we've had an entirely realistic summation of his pace yet. This might be his chance to show us exactly what he's made of.
Kane Crawford is really still under a lot of pressure from Michael Hornby, who we saw have that incident earlier on, which has cost him a bit of speed and also a bit of pace and position on the track at the moment. So Michael Hornby there, you can see behind, having a little look around, but he just hasn't been able to get it close enough to Kane ahead of him to put any kind of pressure on or any kind of manoeuvre that he can make his way around. He's for a mistake, but Kane's going to be coming into the back. So now we are with Adam Holloway. Other cars on the track here. 26, and he's chasing behind Denny Wood, Mark Johnson, Oliver Carwardine at the front of that. And look at how close these guys are getting. That's Denny and Mark Johnson there, going side by side into the S's. This is the moment we were waiting for to see. Not quite. It looks like he's had to just relinquish that position there and take the sensible route down, which is to slide through these S's. Incredibly delicate, especially in these Porsche, where many of the drivers have told me are very twitchy and very, very challenging to drive, especially in these very pressurised situations that they're in. Now, looking here, number 23, the Bombardier car, under threat there still. As we go further back in the pack, we've got the likes of Stephen Kershaw and Vance Briggs and Stephen Masters bringing it back. Oh, a bit of a twitch there from Kershaw at the back of the end.
Yeah, although if you're going to do it, that was turn 6 into turn 7. If he'd done that out of turn 7, then he'd be a flitting duck. If he can recover into after turn 7, which looks like he's not done too badly, but there we're going to see Briggs is making the move on him. He's chosen to go from the outside into the chicane, but he might already be clear before we even get there. Yeah, he is. And they've both used a sensible non-James Armstrong braking marker, so they've both made it nice and easily into the turn there.
Great move, and really enjoyable battle to watch between these guys. 25 and 33 saw there. Vance Briggs overtaking Stephen Kershaw. Now, we were speaking about James there a moment ago. The next car for him is going to be Michael Hornby, and with the damage on that car. Oh, and there goes James off the track now. It looks like he's just going to have a slow down for that, Chris. He's just probably killed those tyres, covered them in grass. He's obviously chasing a bit too hard to get up to the back of Michael Hornby, who I was going to say has probably got that little bit of damage and maybe a little bit less pace than James has. But given that little trip across the greenery, maybe James won't be catching up to him anytime soon.
Yeah, it seems like we're now into phase 2 of the James Armstrong IR UK league pattern, which is he's put all the flashy overtakes in, and now that he's pushing in some clean air, he's pushing just that little bit too hard, and he's going to start losing time because he's going to go off track. But again, like we've said already, this time he's got some runoff area, so he's not damaged the car, so we can still see some magic driving from him. But I think the Bathy, Crawford, Hornby group ahead of him, they're going to want to not be fighting too much, because they don't want to have a rampaging James Armstrong catch them up, because they've got their own fight to worry about. So it looks like Denny Wood and Mark Johnson are trading places. That's through the chicane at the end of the circuit. And on this occasion, Denny Wood has got the better of Mark Johnson, but there is plenty of slipstream to go here. If I was Mark Johnson, I'd be waiting for about half the track, trying to set a move up out to that right-hander for the long back straight. As we saw last lap, you're putting a lot of trust in your fellow driver if you try and go too wide through the S's, which they're approaching as we get here now.
Looks like they're nice and tidy at the moment, Chris. Bit of curb being taken there by Mark Johnson and Bombardier car, number 23 behind. He's pushing hard, trying to keep up, but it doesn't look like he's going to be close enough to get anything done here. I'll be really interested to see what happens with the battle between Colvin and Brown and Franklin further down the pack as well at the moment. That was a great fight as we go over to Colin Wynn now, and so Colin is chasing along behind Jared Coleman, who's chasing Anthony Franklin. So 4 cars nose to tail here for a really exciting battle as we see Coleman looking for a move on Franklin. He's not really close at the minute, but Colin's getting really close round the outside. Colin Wynn giving it a go there. He's going to have the better drive out of the exit. Oh, and a bit of contact there between the cars as they just killed it and they try and slow down there into the final couple of corners. Now, it looks to me like Colin there with an incredible pace. That's almost allowed Anthony Franklin to start just bringing that gap out now with the guys behind him fighting, and it looks like Gavin Halls is your winner of this sprint race. We'll go over to the results in a moment as we just finish up watching these. There goes Colin Wynn. That was a big dive down the inside then. We'll see who comes out on top over the finish line in a moment as we see them come down the hill. We've just seen Slater there coming round. Let's see who Anthony Franklin has managed to keep that gap ahead, and it's Colin Wynn. Colin Wynn's the driver that's come out on top.
He's done very well there. That was a very aggressive move, but again, no contact there. Coleman gave him the space, and yeah, this is the race. You're entitled to go for it. But that went very quickly. I thought that was 10 laps, and it didn't feel like 14 minutes. It felt like about 5 minutes. It's a nice little appetizer for what we're going to get in a few minutes. I think we're going to have some very spicy racing ahead of us.
Absolutely, that was brilliant stuff. They'll have to look after their tyres a bit more, I expect, as they enter the next race, with it being that bit longer. So that was an incredibly aggressive 10 laps. We expect them to do about 25 in the feature race, so they'll have to be a bit kinder, possibly, to the cars as they navigate the twists and turns of the S's and the rest of this Road Atlanta circuit, which has provided some fantastic action, which has been brought to you by TrackCams22.com. All these angles of a Porsche Cup racing that you're able to see has been fantastic viewing for all of us this evening. If you're enjoying what you see here, head over to the Facebook page. That's facebook.com/iRacing UK, and we'll be happy to get you an invite to one of these leagues if you're interested in competing. If you want to rewatch some of this action, you can either watch it right here on the Twitch channel where you may already be, or if you're watching us on YouTube with the iRacing UK community channel over there. The guys have got 5 minutes of warm-up time now before the next session begins. We'd like to take a moment now just to speak about the events of this weekend. The motorsport world is one known for the excitement, adrenaline, and competition that it produces. But we cannot forget the inherent risk and danger to the lives of competitors and trackside personnel alike, many of whom are volunteers. At iRacing UK, we were deeply saddened to hear the tragic news that a volunteer marshal has passed away following a horrific incident at Brands Hatch circuit during a British Automobile Racing Club championship event. The loss of any member of the motorsport community is devastating, and our thoughts and best wishes are with the family and friends of all those involved. There's a link on the community chat for the Just Giving page, crowdfunding for the marshal, the friends and the family, and all those affected. Please feel free to head over to that link and give your donations if you feel that you can. Okay, Chris, so a great evening so far that we've had from the drivers. The results of that race, thrilling really. Managed to see Gavin Halls get past Baxter Jones at the start of that. Very early on in the race, it was barely even a challenge for Gavin Halls, who really, perhaps having maybe entered the session in a bit less of a hurry than he did, he might have put in a qualifying time that meant he wouldn't have needed to race so hard there. So he's going to be starting from P1, obviously, in the feature race. Anybody that you think you're going to be looking out for based on what you've just seen there in our initial sprint race?
Well, the risk of sounding like a broken record, it's got to be the usual of James Armstrong. Although I would also like to think that Dan Batty, having made up a few places and kept it safe, as Gavin Halls' main championship rival, I think he's going to be looking very racy at the start, because we're now into, I know it's a longer race, but we're now into those conditions where you have to take those risks, because it's not that there's not a second chance later on in the evening. This is it. This is the main event. So I think we are going to see slightly more aggressive driving, particularly through the S's. But as we've seen already, some of these drivers are incredibly comfortable on the late brakes going into that chicane at the end of the track, and that will be where the most sensible overtaking moves are made, I would say. as we saw with the James Armstrong, very assertive one that slightly sent the other driver off the track. I think that was Stephen Kershaw, but it's going to be, I think, the place to go. You've got that nice long straight. Focus on getting a good exit out of turn 7. Really ride the slipstream all the way down, and then as we've seen, you can kind of make the overtake on either side. You can go around the outside, which gives you the inside line out of the exit in what is 10B according to iRacing's track map, or you can take the inside and you can get that braking done really late. You don't even have to worry about the other car, you're already ahead, and that allows you to get that slightly better exit. Don't let the other driver make full use of your draft, and then you're not worrying about a really risky overtake being done on you into turn 1 of the next lap. So I think we're going to see some excellent driving here, hopefully.
Speaking of risky manoeuvres, Colin Wood at the end there, big old jump into that final chicane just to try and get himself that extra position into the feature race. Looking forward to seeing a bit more action from Colin in the next part of the session. Oliver Carwadine, I would put up a good fight at the front of the order. He was a little bit off kilter, I think, when James passed him possibly, which then put him in a bit of a fight with some of the other guys in the mid pack. Chris Wally wasn't really able to give much of a challenge, was he, at the front either? So we'll see what he brings to the table on the next round. Now, just to run you through what's going to be coming up later on in the Porsche Cup, we've got 2 more races, I believe, now. So that's the 15th of August at Long Beach will be with you for our penultimate race there, and then the final round of the 29th of August will be Bathurst. I'm sure that will be just as lethal as we saw at Belle Isle with those rules on either side of the mountain. So some brilliant racing that we've still got to come up with. It's hard to believe that we're over halfway through this Porsche Cup league, really, Chris, when we were only at Hockenheim a few weeks ago.
I know, it's absolutely flying by the weeks at the moment, and the race is going super quickly themselves anyway, and I think that's been the case with all the leagues. I know, so with the Radical League, which we're both in, it's a weekly league, and it just, you've only been gone for 2 or 3 days, it feels like, and suddenly the next race is upon you. There's almost no time to practice. I believe we're at Oran Park this week, so that could be some incredibly spicy racing.
Yeah, it's about a 1 minute, 1 lap, I think. It's if you're a fast boy in the Radicals. So just judging from some I had a look at earlier, but, yeah, it would be a bit of a contrast from the much wider and longer Silverstone circuit where we were last week. So some great racing we had there, which unfortunately you weren't able to be there with us, were you, Chris, at that time? So hopefully we'll see you there this round.
Yes, I already can't remember what it was I was doing, but it was important, whatever it was. Just have no idea what it was.
I'm sure it was. Now we're just waiting for the racers to grid it. We've got Mark Johnson and I believe just Stephen Hughes we're waiting for now on the grid. Gavin Halls, Mark Baxter Jones and Chris Wally in your front 3 as we wait for the lights to go out now. 1 light, 2, 3, 4 and 5. We're racing here for the feature race in the Porsche Cup, and it looks like Gavin Halls has got a fantastic start. Side by side as they go into turn 1 possibly. We've got a lot of cars having a look round on the inside there. There is some people as we go into the early phase of this race. Gavin Halls a fantastic start with Johnson and I believe possibly Slater. I might just see all of these cars going down side by side in the S's in some cases, but some of them keeping it nice and close together, not quite side by side, but keeping it loose and bumper as they head back to the train. At the moment, I don't believe we've lost anybody at the moment. I can see Stephen Hughes might have been possibly but I think we're just seeing somebody go off. Matt Cox is now dropping down the let's car 7-10. We're going to replay now. Matt Cox is seeing that it's just a little bit untidy there. And here's with Nick Alexander, Craig Schill, and here we are now with James Armstrong up into 5th position. Oh, we've had some contact behind there. It's car 56 and one Hornby in the sprint race as well. Let's see what happened to Michael Hornby. So James goes up the inside and Kane Crawford. That's Kane who's just managed to make a bit of contact there with the rear bumper of Michael Hornby as they enter the chicane. Michael will have been looking to try and make amends for that. Not quite as great first race that we had earlier this evening. That puts James in a good position, and then again, he's really a bit of a mover shape of the scene. Here's this view on board from Kane. So really well. A bit of the hit there, wasn't it, Chris?
Yeah, I think he was driving as though XB, sorry, XB had giving Armstrong the space there. He was driving as though there was no car there whatsoever, although I did think the rejoin was of a similar quality, because there were a few drivers that had to do some quite severe evasive manoeuvres in the back of the pack there, although that has allowed Rob Exelby, sorry, it was Michael Hornby, sorry, as I say, Rob Exelby, who started the 1918 was the main race, he's trying to change Armstrong in the previous race. But you can see, aside from those one or two incidents, it's been relatively clean so far, considering this is, as we've said, this is the feature race. These are for the points paying positions. As we see, that's the car, I think that's car number 80 of Oliver Carwadine there, was going for an overtaking move, but it doesn't look like it's gone off. Just slightly ahead of where we are here. That was Stephen Kershaw we're on board with, number 25. He's looking potentially for a move on 33 Vance Briggs into turn 1, which would be very brave. But he's just pushed that a little bit too hard, and now he's going to have Tom Slater behind for company. Is he going to look for a move into turn 1? Nope, he's going to line him up though, I reckon.
He's having a good look, isn't he? It looks like there's going to be plenty of moves happening as we see this train of Porsches continue to be nose to tail all the way down the S's here. Some interesting moves looking down the inside. It looks like that chicane towards the end is still going to be the favourite position to make those manoeuvres, with nobody being quite brave enough to try it into the S's at this point. As we stay here with Stephen Kershaw, looks like he's managed to keep it ahead of Tom Slater, who we thought might have the run but hasn't been able to make it happen. A bit later on the brakes there as he closes up to the rear bumper, as we have a look now at Dan Bathy, who's going side by side with Chris Wally. It looks like Dan Bathy now ahead, and Chris not able to do anything about that there. The car number 91 overtaking number 2. But will there be room for a manoeuvre here into the chicane? He's going to have a look on the inside there, but I don't think he's brave enough to outbrake him just here. He's going to choose to tell the tale another day, isn't he? So, and here is car number 23 of Mark Johnson again being overtaken on the inside by Adam Holloway. He's got it done. Great tidy manoeuvre there. Some fantastic racing from the guys in the mid pack as we go back to the Wally and Bathy battle, but look at who's behind them, like great white shark waiting to chew the boat up. It's Jaws, James Armstrong, and he's got round because it looks like Dan Bathy's given it a bit too much on the outside there and had to get out the throttle, and that's lost in the position as Chris Wally now manages to keep ahead in third, and he's going to be the next person in the crosshairs of James Armstrong.
Yeah, that's going to be very frustrating for Bathy because he knows Halls is in the lead and that's his main championship rival, and now he's got another strong driver in front of him to try and get past, to try and help minimise that gap that Halls is going to be developing in the championship lead. But I don't know if I want to be Chris Wally here either, because James Armstrong is quite a scary driver to have in your rear view mirror. He's very strong and he's lining him up here potentially for that favourite overtake of his into the chicane, we'll see. But I mean, the setup he's running would have to be incredibly low downforce for him to make this gap up here. He's about half a second behind him here. He is slowly edging forward, and it is a very long straight, so let's not count him out just yet, as that gap is now down to 0.3 of a second. Should we see if he goes for it here? No, he's unless this is a very late lunge, which it's not going to be. He's just going to keep it calm. We've still got 25 minutes of racing to go. No need to absolutely send it yet. As we look at Vance Briggs on the inside of Mark Johnson, I believe that is.
Yeah, that is absolutely, that's Vance Briggs getting looking to get the job done there, isn't he? So, Mark Johnson, sorry, getting the job done, isn't it? So car number 23 though, we've seen him a lot this evening, making manoeuvres. That's some great stuff. James Armstrong, I believe, he's getting incredibly close to Chris Wally at the front there, and Bathy is now actually making a bit more of a gap to Bathy behind him. Gavin Hall's completely unbothered at the front as far as I can tell at the moment. He's just out running his own race, and Chris Wally will go to a rear view here, and this is what it's like to see James behind you, chasing you down throughout a whole race. Now, we've seen him having a fantastic charge through the order tonight. Now, Gavin Hall's lap times, Sean just told me, are close to the record from last season. He's done a 120.19, so we were saying, will we see anybody get into the 119s? Not quite yet, but he's ever so close to that marker. He's if he breaches that, I think extra points for Gavin, fastest lap point, whatever. That is a brilliant performance out in the front at the moment. There's Chris Wally now looking like he's actually grown a bit of a gap there to James Armstrong. So James perhaps going to be under threat next as we go a bit further down the field to Stephen Kershaw. And we've got a manoeuvre going on here. This is Steve Kershaw, car number 25, and we've got him, Tom Slater next to him. Who's going to come out on top here? Oh, it looks to me like Kershaw there is the one that's managed, or Tom Slater, sorry, has taken the position, and Kershaw having to just sit back, but he's going to be a lot of pressure here from all of these cars that are going to be coming up behind him. Look at the likes of Colin Wynn fighting with Rob Exelby behind him. Colin made that very daring move before. Are we going to see Rob Exelby try and do something similar as we now go over to Dan Bathy and James Armstrong at the front, still fighting away, and Chris Wally's completely dropped these guys now. What's happened here?
Yeah, well, on the last lap coming out of turn 7, James had just a little bit of oversteer on the exit, and that's what's allowed Batty to get right up there. And you can see how hard James Armstrong is pushing as he wiggles his way through the S's. And is actually Batty going to look for a move on the inside there? I'd say it's worth waiting. See that James is pushing so hard. Could they be any closer? They're about as close as you could possibly get without being inside each other.
He's practically giving him a toe at that point, isn't he? Like,
yeah.
I don't mean just an aerodynamic toe, I mean literally a toe. Oh, Rob Armstrong's just dropped down the order a little bit as well. We'll stay here, though, for the moment with Dan Bathy and James Armstrong, because there absolutely has to be a move brewing here. And here it is, Dan having a little look. He's nowhere near close enough at this point in the race, but he's going to now go nice and close in behind James and just continue to follow him around. Look, maybe a little bit of damage on the front of Dan's car. And are we back here now with the likes of Hornby, who's just getting past Exelby? So Exelby, who was chasing Colin Wynn incredibly hard a minute ago, he's had to give that position up to the faster Hornby, who we saw drop down a few positions after that starting incident they had earlier. Now, Armstrong and Bathy still battling it out down as they come into the S's. Looks to me like Armstrong a little bit more comfortable. Oh, they're bouncing all over those curbs, Chris. We know that they like to use all the track because they're paid for it, but at this stage of the race, it almost seems a bit risky to go bouncing all that way and risk a bit of losing a bit of lap time when you're being chased that hard.
Well, it just shows the confidence these guys have in their own ability, because if they get that even slightly wrong, that's them into the grass and they lose so much time. But of course, the pace of these top guys, you need to maximise the circuit. As we have a look here at the number 26 of Holloway trying to make a move on Carwadine, who is himself, he's got Denny Wood in front of him. So this sort of makes it tricky for, if you're the 26 of Adam Holloway, the guy in front of you has got the draft that you have as well. So you can't just rely on that. It's not quite so simple as it is for, say, for example, Dan Batty with James Armstrong. As Exelby, it looks like has gone off track, unfortunately for him. He was having quite a good race at that point. He'd made a few places up, and it looks like he's now behind Stuart Brown.
We'll try and get a replay of that in a moment, but we can't ignore Dan Bathy going up the inside of James Armstrong here, and it looks like they're almost staying side by side. Dan having to just maybe like relinquish it a little bit there, but oh no, it looks like he's managed to keep it right onto the back. We didn't want to see Dan go too wide there, picking up all the grass and dirt they can on the edge of that circuit there. And there's Colin Wynn being overtaken by the looks of it by Michael Hornby. Absolutely no room being given there. He slipped it right down the inside. Colin following him nice and closely, and Michael Hornby making his way back up the order. A fantastic bit of work from him. And as you said, Exelby, who was previously also in this fight, nowhere to be seen now because he's had a bit of an incident further back down the field. Now, here is Denny Wood. We've been overlooking at Denny before. A little bit of pace loss there, and it looks to me like Adam Holloway has possibly got a better run, but the problem with some of these midfield battles, Chris, is if you lose one position, you could potentially lose 3 if you're in a queue of about 4 cars and you're the lead car and you're the one that makes a mistake.
Yep, and it's so much pressure if you're at the head of one of these trains, knowing that you've got all these guys itching to get past you. It's a real skill to not just drive in your mirrors, drive your own race, and just trust the guys behind you aren't going to outbrake themselves and crash into you. And I mean, we've not seen a huge amount of it as we go to a replay, because we've had an incident of Anthony Franklin, it looks like, who has already got some damage to his bonnet. And perhaps that damage is part of the reason. Oh yeah, that's a very sickly looking Porsche. And yeah, he's just lost it on the exit of 7 there. It's easily done with a fully intact car. We've seen James Armstrong nearly do it, and he's one of our top drivers. But Anthony's down in 25th and last of our still running drivers, so he'll just be using this as some practice session, I think, now.
Getting used to the quirks of the car and learning ready for the next round. Absolutely. As we go to some more action here, Michael Hornby making those places back up, and he goes too wide into turn one, but he's got a bit of a roadblock in front of him there, hasn't he? With is that, I believe, Stephen Kershaw that you're going to have to try and get past next. Tom Slater kind of having to give up the position there as Michael managed to get right side by side, and he's right up behind Steve Kershaw now as they go into the S's. He's really holding him up by the looks of it, isn't he? Michael Hornby on an absolute charge up the field, and he'll be looking to get this manoeuvre done as quickly as possible so he doesn't get caught up with the other guys that are trying to get past Tom Slater behind, like Colin Wynn and Matt Cox. So Matt Cox, who we saw earlier, who dropped down the order after a bit of an incident, he's now back up into 16th position, following behind Colin Wynn, who we've seen driving very well this evening also. Michael Hornby still not quite able to get that manoeuvre done. Let's see what happens down into the chicane. Is he going to be brave enough to make a manoeuvre? Further up the field, it looks like Dan Batty's dropped back a little bit from James Armstrong. We'll perhaps go to that in a moment. As we see, here we go, is Stephen Kershaw going, trying to defend on the inside there, and Hornby, oh, is there a bit of contact? Oh, there is a bit of contact, but it wasn't between Hornby and Kershaw. It looked like it was actually Tom Slater that just managed to pick up a bit of the contact there, picking as they all came through that incredibly tight chicane. Oh, yeah, and Colin Wynn slipping around there as well, making an extra position, so he'll be incredibly pleased with that. Matt Cox following him through also, and there's Colin on your screens now, side by side with Matt Cox as they go around the final section. Also, this is now they're in now, isn't it, Chris? And Matt Cox has gotten that move done. The first person I think we've actually seen manage an overtake into the S's.
Yep, and he'll be very pleased that we've caught that, because that, as you say, I think that's the first time that's happened. I find it interesting with this track. Maybe it's the strength of the draft and the fact it's the only real overtaking position. We've as we watch an Adam Holloway crash here as he comes out of the S's section, and I think he's just put the power on a bit early, gone over a curb, and oh no, he's lost it into the wall. One of the few places where it is easy to get damage there. No traction control in these cars, of course.
Big old hit into the concrete there. Luckily that car not looking too bad, no loss of rear wing like we were seeing at Belle Isle, so that'll be a bit of pressure off for, I believe it was Denny Wood, I think he was following at the point in time. That is that's almost a towing job, isn't it? It doesn't look like it's steering very well, so we'll see what happens to him. We've got Tom Slater, who's now under threat from Matt Cox, who has been charging up the order. He's put Colin Wynn right in his dust. He's not worried about him at all. So Bathy is now quite far behind Armstrong by the looks of it. So we'll quite close at the moment. We'll go to that in a moment. But look at this between the likes of Slater and Cox. Slater having to defend for his life here, with Matt Cox not really looking to try and make that move happen here in turn one. But we've seen him do it in the S's once already. Will he try it again here? He's having a look around, but he can't quite find the gap that he's looking for. He's going to have to be patient and wait till the later portion of this lap, as we've seen where all of the other overtakes have been happening. Now we're back here with James Armstrong. He's being followed very closely by Dan Bathy. These guys have really not let each other go at all this evening, and Dan Bathy knows he needs to get that move done to try and put himself in a position to try and challenge Chris Wally. But Chris, I believe, currently completely unbothered by these guys. He's got the gap ahead, and he's completely happy as we sat on board now here with Dan Bathy. Where's he going to look to go here? As him and James Armstrong, both very late breakers here. I don't think he's going to be able to get it done. He gets incredibly close to the rear quarter panel there of James's car, but James is going to cover it off nicely. Dan might just have a stronger exit. No, James is clawing it away there. So Dan not being able to make it happen there, and James picking up as much of the exit grass there as he can, and on the pit straight as well.
Yeah, he's really maximising the width of the track here. I mean, very brave driving to do that. But I think it just sort of shows you the way James Armstrong is driving. I think he's possibly settled for fourth place here, because he's already starting to defend into that chicane. And if you look at the fastest laps of Armstrong and Bathy, well, Armstrong is quicker than Wally and Bathy by fastest lap, but Wally is 4 seconds ahead as we look at the 48 of Nick Alexander, who it looks like is not having the most fun time this evening, and he's currently down in 24th with just Craig Schill behind. So I don't know if something's happened to Craig there, because he was running quite well earlier. Yeah, Schill seems to have had a couple of accidents.
Oof, and there's a bit of a bump there on the curb from Vance Briggs. He's the next car ahead of Tom Slater. Now Tom will be looking to get past him as soon as possible because he's still got Matt Cox behind him. And there goes Vance, letting that position go. It looks like a lot of damage on the front of that car, so he's going to be struggling for pace, and that's going to put Colin Wynn in a position to also try and make a move. Colin, with the amount of places he's been taking throughout this race, he's almost charging for a top 10 as well. Matt Cox is definitely on track for it after that incident he had earlier. He's putting all the effort in to make his way back up as we watch Colin win now. Managed to get it around Vance Briggs. It doesn't look like a particular challenge. He's got more straight line speed there as they enter the chicane, and he'll be very comfortable with that manoeuvre as Tom Slater continues to defend from Matt Cox behind him. Now, what will Colin be able to do? Is this battle ahead with Tom Slater going to be enough for Colin to try and come and get his own back on Matt Cox ahead, who's currently being held up, I think, as he would probably see it, because it looks like he's got a bit more pace than Tom.
Yeah, but you've got to be able to make that overtake on merit, and defensive driving is a skill. I think Tom Slater will be quite happy with his performance today, although it looks like Cox has he's done it again. He's gone around the outside of the S's. Is he going to maintain that?
Side by side, it's been incredibly tight here. They're having to just nurse those cars round, and there's the Bombardier car number 23, so maybe there might have actually been Mr. Mark Johnson there that's gotten in the way of that situation. So I think Mark and Tom have both managed to get past Mark Johnson there, and now Colin's going to be looking for a manoeuvre here, because Mark's lost a lot of time there, and he'd lost a lot of speed out of the S's, so possibly an incident for him. I'm not sure if there was anybody else caught up in that, although we have seen, I think, somebody in the pits at the moment. It's Vance Briggs we've sort of got there at the minute, Chris.
Yep, and luckily for Colin, it didn't seem that traffic cone affected the downforce of his car too much, so he'll be quite pleased with that, although it's a nice little aside for us to look at there. And it seems like the grid have mostly spread out now. We've still got the battles. I mean, we've got the Matt Cox train, although Cox's pace, I'm not sure how much he'll be the front of that train. It might be back to Tom Slater soon. And this is the closest pairing on the grid as James Armstrong has lost it.
Oh, he's off the track in turn one, pushing too hard as he tried to defend from Dan Bathy, but he's managed to lose it there, but he's got it back on track safely. He's not in anybody's way, and that's only put him down into 7th position. Now, Oliver Carwadine and Kane Crawford ahead of him. I'm pretty sure that he's quicker than both those guys, so he has got a chance to make his way back up the order. Now, Sean keeps telling me, has he got the tyres for this? Now, with a half race distance now gone, we'll soon see if that incident was in fact caused by a lack of rubber on the wheel rims. You know what, when you said about that traffic cone earlier, Chris, I was thinking if a Radical hit that, it would be a meatball flag.
It would be game over.
Made of paper mache.
They really are.
Colin Wynn looks like he's had another go here at getting around Stuart Brown, but he's not been able to get it done. And he's gone the short way around, and he couldn't get around Brown on this occasion. So that's unfortunate for Colin, who's been having a fantastic race up until this point. But he's got it back on track with no damage, and hopefully we'll see him now just trying to make his way back up the order a little bit. He's only down in 16th. He hasn't lost too much, yeah, he'll still probably be happy with that kind of finish this evening. As we go now back over to James Armstrong, he's going to be looking to try and close that gap up to Carwadine ahead of him, and he's only got Denny Wood for company behind, so I don't believe that James is going to be too worried about that. It looks like he's a little bit off the apex there, possibly. We'll see if we can get a start replay for you as well at the moment to just show you what happened through this action. Let's see what from the back of Gavin here what happened. So Gavin, a fantastic start, but look at Russell Baxter Jones, Mark Baxter Jones there on the right hand side. You've just gone out of camera view there, but he's managed to keep it incredibly close, and he's taken the sensible option of just tucking it in behind Gavin than rather trying to go around the outside. And you can see in the background all those cars making it round the first corner successful, and look at the gap that he manages to get off the start of this race. So fantastic work from Gavin Halls, and largely unchallenged off the start line, Chris.
Yeah, exactly, and I think Halls has been driving pretty much flat out, and you can see the potential tyre wear we've got here, because Halls' fastest lap is a 20.2. His last lap, well, he's just gone through, is actually now a 21.7, so they are really slowing down. In fact, Baxter Jones is right on the back of him now, so possibly Halls has had a not so great lap there.
This is incredibly close. I don't think we'd seen... What was... Sean, did you just say the gap in the background? I think you just said it in the background a moment ago. So Sean thinks that a couple of seconds ago the gap was 9 seconds between these guys, and now we're at a 0.4. It was 0.2 as they came into turn 1. Now, that is an incredible difference. So I wonder if we've seen an incident maybe, or somebody having to have a bit of a slowdown. Maybe he's had a slowdown penalty, or a couple of slower laps, or maybe even a bit of traffic on the tarmac as he's been going around. The other option, I guess, Chris, would be fuel saving possibly. Maybe not put enough in the tank to last an entire feature race.
Well, that's going to be a very stressful remaining 10 minutes if you're Gavin Halls, because you've not got a huge amount of time to fuel save. You almost want Baxter Jones to go in front of you so that you can take advantage of the slipstream, as it looks like our favourite broadcaster, James Armstrong.
No, that's Matt Cox. That's Matt Cox. He's got around Denny Wood, who's just made a mistake there. So, Matt Cox.
Oh, dear.
A dink there. What was that? That's James Armstrong.
That's James Armstrong, and that's the number 87, I think. So that was Denny Wood there that was initially involved. Oh, dear.
Oh, dear.
So it looks like James had already gone off, and then sort of trying to get back onto the racing line, he's reversed straight into the other drivers. And that's unfortunately the end of James Armstrong's race.
Well, we've either cursed him or he's just kind of maintained the same consistency pattern as the previous races, where we see these fantastic heroic moves at the grid and then tragedy towards the end. Unfortunately, we now just have a little look here at Tom Slater defending from Stephen Kershaw, who we've seen these chaps fighting quite a lot throughout this evening. Also, the likes of Rob Exelby, who's managed to make his way back up by the looks of it to me.
Yeah, he's doing well. He's now up into 10th, so that's 16 places gained this race, with Denny Wood having to pit, because I'm guessing Denny has got the damage from that James Armstrong incident, which is a real shame for him, because he was running really well up into 7th, I believe, at that point. But that's promoted quite a few drivers that I think will be very pleased with their position. So Mark Johnson in 9th is another one who I think could be quite pleased with his exploits this evening. Kane Crawford up in 5th, and now Oliver Carwadine in 6th as well, I'd say, having a very strong race today. Carwadine's up 3 from his grid slot of 9th. As we ride on board with Stephen Kershaw now, who just can't get past Tom Slater. He's been defending very well this evening. He's not had a chance to put any overtakes in, really, that we've seen, but he's certainly defended like an absolute pro.
Denny Wood's gone to the pits, Chris, by the looks of it, so that's possibly race over for Denny as we now go to car 35 of Michael Rowe. Now, earlier we saw Colin have a little incident which put him down to 16th. He's now up to 14th now, so back up a couple of positions with a couple of the crashes that we've obviously had. And here's Craig Schill with that tribute livery to the Marshals that he has there on car number 82 this evening. Fantastic to see that from Craig Schill as we have a little look here at the rear of that Porsche GT3 Cup car. Now, at the top of the order, Gavin Halls is still leading this race. Gavin and Baxter Jones having an incredible fight at the front. The gap now only 0.5 seconds between those guys as we stay on board here at the front of Craig Schill's car, number 82, into the main pit straight. Great little angle that we get here from track cams 22. We're now going to go over to Adam Holloway. Big dents in the front of that Porsche Cup car of 26. And behind him, Stephen Masters and Jared Coleman. We'll see what these guys can do. The gap's pretty wide between the mid-pack at the moment, with only some of the guys like Kershaw and Slater that were a bit closer. We'll go up to your leaders of Gavin Halls and Baxter Jones. Looks like that gap just starting to increase a little bit now, Chris. I think there's a few back markers ahead though, so this could throw things into contention. Let's stay with these guys as they enter a new lap here, as they go into lap 19 with only 5.5 minutes of this race left. These back markers could make all the difference for Baxter Jones.
Yeah, they really could. And Halls and Baxter Jones's lap times, they've been pretty much matching each other for the last two. I think the lap before that, Halls must have opened that gap up a little bit more, because it was more about 2 or 3 tenths at one point. But it's going to be very stressful for both these guys, because as we've seen, it's so easy to lose it. That's the 666 of... That's Rob Armstrong, who's been very good blue flag driver there. That'll be good to see. I think next up on the track is going to be Michael Rowe, who is about 10 seconds up the road. So they've got a bit of... Oh, that's a bit less, actually, looking at it there. But they will hope that the remaining drivers can be just as nice as Rob was there. It's what you want, really, because they're running their own race. We don't want to see the front of this race ruined by it. And I guess also the nice thing is it's a bit of screen time as we go over to Stuart Brown, who's still trying to get past Tom Slater.
Yeah, not quite able to get it done. Actually, it was I believe it was Kershaw that was trying to get past him before, wasn't it?
Yeah,
so,
you're right. Yeah.
Kershaw in that kind of, I think, bluer car. There you go, with a little fire flame on the front of it. He's at the top of the S's now, so he's managed to get his way through. So now, yeah, Brown going to be putting up a challenge. So I wonder if Slater just struggling a little bit. Matt Cox has crashed after that fantastic run. Oh, it's the same place again. He didn't outbrake himself this time. He's just managed to spin it around. But luckily, it's not cost him, I don't think, quite as much as it... Oh, yeah, a few positions actually, isn't it? Because he was in the top 10. I've just heard that we had Slater crash as well. So that pressure from whoever it was behind him at that point in time, I believe it was... Was that Brown? It was Brown that was behind him. So Brown, yeah, there you go. Brown managed to slip past on the replay there. So fantastic for Brown, but Slater unfortunately losing another place. He's been dropping down the order a little bit with Kershaw and Brown now getting past him. But let's see if Slater fancies a bit of a fight now into the chicane. He's going to see if he can get that position back with, as we said, a few minutes of this race left to go. 3.5 now. There's everything to play for, but it looks to me like Brown is quite comfortably going to grow that gap now, Chris.
Yep, I think both of them there had a bit of a sympathy spin when Matt Cox was trying to rejoin the track. I mean, Matt Cox was in no danger of hitting either of them, but I think we've all done it, those of us who aren't the absolute cream of the crop. You see a driver that's gone off in front of you, you're meant to drive where you're watching, you're looking at a car that's gone off the road. It's target fixation a bit there. I can very much sympathise. But this is Tom Slater's chance to finally get an overtake on someone rather than just defending very well. And he's the closest driver to someone else on the track, but he's only got 3 minutes left to try and get that overtake done. As Gavin Halls up front was 2/10 quicker than Baxter Jones that lap, so he will be beginning to feel just that little bit more comfortable, although I don't think you can ever really say you're fully comfortable when your main rival is less than a second behind you.
Not to forget, Matt Cox is going to be coming up to the back of this pair as well, of Tom Slater and Stuart Brown. So Matt Cox will be hungry to make up those positions that he's already lost once this evening, and then he's gone and lost a few of them all over again. As you said, we have a fight at the front of the pack at the minute, which is starting to grow that gap between Gavin Halls and Baxter Jones. Chris Wiley not really able to put much of a dent in those guys at all, really. So him and Dan Bathy are going to be just cruising to third and fourth by the looks of it at the moment. But Kane Crawford in fifth, which is looking fantastic for him. As we have a little look near at the replay of Anthony Franklin, it looks like he's just going to lose it here. Maybe is there an I think he just managed to get an overtake on Rob, possibly. But okay, we're going to go now over. Oh, there's the replay there of Brown going off track, but he managed to slip it around both of those guys. Fantastic work there from Brown. He's had a great little session there where he's managed to make up a couple of places into the later stages of this race. Less than 2 minutes to go now, and Brown under pressure from Slater, but Slater not really able to close that gap up too much at the moment, as we see Gavin Halls at the front of the pack now, over a second clear of Baxter Jones again, which he'll be very, very happy about. Here he is into the S's. We're just with Gavin Halls now. A few more back markers to get round, which has allowed Baxter Jones just to close up a little bit, but not probably enough to be a problem for Gavin Halls. Let's remember that there can be mistakes obviously in these races, so it's all to play for still into the final minute of racing here at Road Atlanta. Car 38 has had a fantastic race, but Baxter Jones doesn't want to give up just yet, because there's everything to play for. Anything could happen in this Porsche Cup League, and only a couple of rounds left. Those points make all of the difference. Now, looking a little bit further back, Rob Exelby, I think, has got a bit of a close gap now. Is that possibly to Mark Johnson or Steve Kershaw? I'm seeing. There you go, he's closed up on Johnson there. So Exelby closed up on Mark Johnson. Is he going to be able to do something again into these final stages of the race? He's been incredibly racing. We've seen Exelby drop down the order with accidents. You can see a bit of damage that he's picked up on that Porsche Cup car, and it could be a checkered flag moment here between Exelby and Johnson. There's 20 seconds left of the race, so we're probably going to see these guys go into another lap now as Gavin Halls comes around the final corner, and they're going to start a white flag lap here, I expect. So let's see what we go for. Let's see what happens further down the order, though, because Exelby and Johnson, a fantastic battle heating up here in the mid-pack. We really want to see what happens between these, and Matt Cox and Slater and Brown are close as well. So let's stay with Exelby, though. It's incredibly close. We've also got Schill. Craig Schill has got past Armstrong as well, further down the field. Doesn't look to me like Exelby is going to be able to do anything with Johnson here, or is he? He's getting incredibly close. Could it be a late braking maneuver? He's going to go to the outside. No, he's not quite able to do it. Johnson closing the door and him not really making any room for Exelby to make that maneuver, as we now go into the final lap for these guys as well, I believe. So here we go over the line, final corner for Exelby and Johnson. Incredibly close stuff, only 2.8 or 0.28 between them at the moment as they head into turn one. Exelby is definitely not going to be close enough here to do anything about it, so let's watch them now through the remainder of this lap. Further down the order, Stuart Brown, Tom Slater and Matt Cox also fighting.
He's gone for it into turn two.
He's gone for it into turn two. Oh, he's not going to be close enough though there. Exelby. Oh no, he has done it. He's got it round. It's incredible work from Exelby. Sorry, I was too busy looking at the timing screen for Halls to see what was happening there. as they now enter the final corner. And there's Gavin Halls, your winner. Baxter Jones, unable to do anything about that in the end. Congratulations to Gavin Halls. That's a strong second from Mark Baxter Jones, who's really cleared the rest of the pack with Gavin at the front. As we now go back to Matt Cox, who's still trying to put the pressure on Tom Slater here into the final stages. Stuart Brown's managed to creep away from these two, with Tom having to defend incredibly hard on this final lap. What's Matt Cox going to be able to do? And he's got round him. He's got round Slater. It looks like, did he give up that position there? Or it didn't look like it was, it probably just slowed down by the looks of it. But it didn't look difficult for Matt Cox there. That's going to be one more that he makes back after a tumultuous session for Matt Cox throughout this Sunday evening.
Yeah, I wonder if that was just an element of tiredness. It's just like, oh, I've done this for 50 minutes tonight. You can have the place. I just want to get in. And a very creditable 13th for Tom Slater there, I would say. He's been, I can remember at Snetterton, he was running very well, but just couldn't quite keep it on the track and was involved in a few incidents. So I'll be happy to keep it clean on what is a very difficult track here. And he still made up 3 places from a squid slot because he started 16th. So it's still a very good result for Tom there.
As we see the final cars coming over the line now, some fantastic racing from all this evening. That's been great action up and down the order. A couple of incidents, but mainly those were just kind of sliding off track, not much in the way of contact or heavy damage between our drivers. So great stuff from everybody on track this evening, and a great bit of racing from the Porsche Cup as we come through round 5. Now, if you're interested in getting involved in any action just like this, you're not part of the community, head over to www.facebook.com/iRacingUK and ask us for an invite over there. You can also get us on Twitch, where we are IRUK_team with the same handle over on Instagram. We'll be getting you the results on screen in a moment, but Chris, fantastic work there from a lot of our drivers, but the curse of James Armstrong making his way up the order only to have a late race incident, it's happened again.
Yeah, I mean, it's brilliant for us in terms of providing content, but he must be getting increasingly frustrated because he knows he's got the pace, but perhaps he's just pushing just a little bit too hard. And it's something in 2 weeks' time, we're not going to be able to do this at Long Beach because, like there was 2 weeks ago, you're just going to crash into walls and destroy your car. As we can have a run through the results here. Nick, do you want to do this, or would you like myself to?
It's incredible. It's entirely up to you, Chris. I'm happy to
I'll run through. I think I'll give your
on.
voice a rest. You've done a very good job this evening. So Gavin Halls is our winner. He's 7/10 clear of Mark Baxter Jones in second, with Chris Wally having a very lonely race in third to round out our podium. Dan Bathy in fourth, so he's going to keep chasing. He's lost 30 points of ground to Gavin Halls today, but that's still 120 points on the board, so that's going to consolidate his position near the top. Kane Crawford with a very creditable 5th place, followed by Oliver Carwadine. Michael Hornby in 7th. He's recovered quite well after that incident. And Rob Exelby charging up from last on the grid to finish 8th. That's an incredible job for him. Mark Johnson in 9th, and then Stephen Kershaw rounds out the top 10. Stuart Brown in 11th, another one who's had a very good race, rising 9 positions. Matt Cox has had a sort of double recovery there to get 12th. Tom Slater 13th, followed by Adam Holloway, Stephen Masters, Jared Coleman, Michael Rowe, Anthony Franklin, Craig Schill, Rob Armstrong, Nick Alexander, and then we've got Vance Briggs, Denny Wood, Colin Wynne, James Armstrong, and Steve Hughes, who did not start, unfortunately.
Well, we'll get the championship points up for you now. So that's Dan Bathy, well and truly established at the front of the order at the minute with 626 points. He's followed by Gavin Halls with 604. Then there's Mark Baxter Jones with 549, and Chris Wally in 4th, followed by Oliver Carwadine in 5th. James Armstrong, Kane Crawford, Stephen Kershaw, Denny Wood, and Johnny Aaliyah, they make up your top 10, followed by Michael Hornby, Colin Wynne, Stephen Masters, Stuart Brown, Adam Holloway, Matt Cox, Vance Briggs, Rob Armstrong, Mark Johnson, Rob Exelby, and Martin Robinson. That's your top 20 on the order at the moment. The next race will be coming to you from Long Beach. That's the 15th of August in 2 weeks' time, where I'm sure it'll be a lot like Belle Isle, as Chris mentioned a moment ago. Walls on either side and incredibly tight spots where we've seen a number of clips, I'm sure, on YouTube before now of cars stacked up around the Long Beach circuit. Thank you very much to everybody who's been involved this evening. If you're a competitor, thank you very much for driving with us. If you're a viewer, thank you very much for listening and watching the stream this evening. Don't forget to give us a like or a subscribe on YouTube, and follow us on Twitch, and hit that subscribe button if you've got the Twitch Prime subscription at your disposal. Thank you very much, obviously, to Chris Rowlands, yourself, for being here with me this evening, and Sean Cranley Swash behind the scenes. And a big thank you to all of you out there in the motorsport community who are volunteers. You are a valuable asset to the community that we all love and enjoy. Thank you and good night.